Right, folks, here I am. I hope you're all safe and well. This is our first of our live lessons. Let me just take this out. Hopefully we don't get any feedback. Are we gonna? Yes, we are. I'll have to leave this in. In fact, if you could just mute the MacBook, please. Yeah, just mute that. Perfect. Right, hopefully you can all still hear me. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, if you could just comment to say that you can see and hear me, that would be wonderful. To save me, and then especially Sam, talking to himself for the next hour. So let me give you a little insight into what these are all about. Because we're in lockdown and we can't give face-to-face lessons, we came up with a plan to be able to deliver some valuable content to you. So these live lessons were born. This evening, PGA professional Sam Griffiths is going to be here in the amazing golf studio at Dunes Golf Centre, going to be delivering to you a lesson on how to use your driver more effectively. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been speaking to Sam about what he's got in his content, and I'm absolutely confident that you're going to get an awful lot of value out of it. This is, as much as we can though, have as an interactive session. So I'm going to be behind the computer, keeping an eye on the comments. So if there's any questions you've got, we have had quite a few questions through email, which we will be reading out during the course of this evening. But if there's anything that comes up as we're on the broadcast, please do just type it in the comments and we'll be able to ping that up on the screen. And then Sam and perhaps I together, we're going to answer it. Now, the way the session's going to work is it's going to be a bit like what's known as a fireside chat at times. Me and Sam will be talking about what's happening. So we don't know what it's going to be like. It's new for us. It might be new for you as well. We're going to wish ourselves luck and good luck to Sam. And I think without further ado, I'm going to welcome to the stage Mr. Sam Griffiths. Everyone at home is going wild. Woohoo! Okay, Sam, over to you, pal.
Thanks, Peter. Welcome to the first of hopefully many live lessons, guys. If I seem a bit uncomfortable in front of the camera, it's because I am. This is the first of me getting over a few hurdles, personal hurdles. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about driving today. Quite a few basics, a little bit more detailed as well. So hopefully I can cover base for a lot of golfers here. The main points I'm going to cover today is going to be the 3 most common mistakes I sort of see while I get people in for lessons on driving. I'm going to tell you how to sort of combat them a little bit and a few easy drills that can help us get new feelings to get rid of these bad habits. Then I'm going to go and show you a few bits of data. Oh, no, sorry. First of all, go through my setup, sort of like I'd say ideal setup for driving, but it can change, which you'll discover later on throughout the session. I'm going to have a look at impact factors using our quad and all the numbers we can receive back from that, which can really help us, obviously, especially us when we're trying to help people with their own driving. What else have we got here? Sorry, folks. Then I'll go and move on to my strike. Explain everything about strike, why it's so important, probably the most important of the impact factors we'll talk about. And then a little bit about gear effect and how that's worked into the driver design to help us out. I'm probably going to talk a little bit about how my driving's gone in the past and the sort of thoughts I've had on it, what I've been trying to practice in myself to get better at driving, because that's probably one of the weakest parts of my game growing up. Playing at Cullen growing up, you don't hit too many drivers in a round, maybe 3 or 4 maximum. And when I moved to Duff House, I got a bit of a shock about trying to hit fairways and missing trees. So, things that I've worked on in the past, my tendencies, my faults, and what I've been doing to try and eradicate them. I'm going to talk about 2 different shots that me personally I take out into the golf course, and I'd advise NMD to sort of try and get their own couple of shots they can play on the driver, not just have the one same shot. Although it's great to have consistency and try and hit the same shot, having these 2 shots in the bag is quite a good thing to have. And then I think we'll talk a little bit at the end about optimal sort of launch and spin numbers to get the most out of your own driving. And then we'll maybe have a few questions at the end. Okay, so going on to the first common mistake I see when I get people in for lessons. It usually comes about when people are trying to create as much speed as they can. Obviously, the driver's the club you want to hit the furthest. And the biggest tendency I see is people swinging without their body. They lose the sequence of their whole body, and they end up swinging mostly with their top half and especially just their arms. And you see people coming in really slashing at the ball, and it comes down. You see the club go up, club come down across the ball, usually an open face to compensate for this, and they get that sort of swipe across the face. Not a very solid hit, and a lot of side spin on it, loss of distance, a lot of backspin too. So what I do with a lot of people is this. We need to sort of realign their sequencing. So we need to make sure everything works in order, which we call the kinematic sequence, if you want to be technical. And that'll help us produce our maximum power through our whole body, using the ground effectively too. So instead of just using brute force, trying to lash at it with the arms, we're going to get the whole body involved and use it as it's supposed to be used, okay? So the first thing I do with people is to try and change, I'll just grab a few clubs, to try and change the feeling they have from the top of the backswing. Now, we know people can get out of sequence here, start using the arms a bit too much and a bit too quickly. But we're going to use this. All I'm using here is 3 clubs, just to get in a bit extra weight. Okay, now try and hold them like a normal club. It's pretty difficult, but once you get a hold of them, it's okay. You go up to the top here. So this weight now, I can feel wants to pull me down here. Instead of throwing the club up here where people get when they try and lash at it, it wants to drop down here. What this does just allows us to get into this position now and allows us to use our body to turn and then bring the clubs through. If you do that with a driver, obviously the driver's one of the lightest feeling clubs in the bag. It's quite easy for you to throw it up into the air. But with this extra bit of weight, I can really feel it wanting to pull my arms down at the back here and then engage my body. So that's the first part, just to get the initial feeling of the clubs wanting to go more down behind you rather than up and over out the top, or over the top people class it as. And then from there, we're going to engage the lower half. So for me, the next stage is feeling the weight there and then getting people to really fire their hips and start that turning, which initiates the whole rest of the swing. It allows the body to come through, then the arms, and then the club finally to the impact position. Okay? So that's a fine, easy one for that. You can do that in the range, in your house, in the garden, anything. And obviously this only applies to some people, not everybody. But again, that's maybe why one-on-one lessons is so beneficial to people rather than just looking at lessons online and things. But that has happened quite a lot in my lessons, and it's one of the most common problems. The second common problem I see is people with poor posture, poor driver posture, I would call it. If you want to switch the camera to the front on, Peter.
You want both on or just the...
Just the front ons.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when I say bad posture, I don't mean somebody's coming in slouched over like this. It's about the setup posture. Now, with the driver, we do tend to want to see a little bit more of a lean back away from target, setting a spine angle here. Okay, I see a lot of people coming in that are too upright, very level shoulders, set up more like what you'd see an iron, somebody hitting an iron shot set up like. So when they're setting up here, they're hitting more down at the ball. Now the key, obviously, for us is to launch the ball for getting our maximum distance. So that doesn't help at all. It actually brings their attack angle down, which I'll explain a bit later. Yep.
Are we going to do that now or later?
Later, I'm going to go through, when I look at a few different shots, and I'll explain attack angle a bit more. But basically, it's attack angles, to say a simplified way, it's how the club comes into the ball. So the club's coming down here, into the back of the ball and still traveling downwards as it hits the ball. That would be a downward attack angle. And if the club's coming up into the back of the ball, hitting it on the way up, that's an up attack angle. If you want to put the first slide on, Peter, I think, is it? It shows me, again, just similar to what I was showing you there, but it's got lines on it to maybe help you see, visualize it a bit easier. Is it on yet?
Yeah.
So you can see the one there with the red lines on it. It's creating a red T shape with my shoulders quite level. My spine angle would be pretty much what people will call upright or vertical. And now this is the one that can tend to create a lot more of a downward blow to the ball. And again, later on, we'll see why it's not such a great thing for driving. It can help, but it doesn't help. It puts spin up, which is not great for distance. The one with the green lines is the preferred setup. You can see where my ball position is. It's a little bit further forward potentially, which allows us to set up again, pivoted a little bit away from target with your spine angle slightly back and feeling like your left shoulder is a little bit higher. And that's all it is. And people in lessons, all I get them to do is feel like literally they're standing at address, the ball's just inside their left foot, and they're feeling like their left shoulder's a little higher, which tilts them away from target. Now, I try to get people to maintain that spine angle throughout their swing, because that's the key. If people lose that spine angle, if you want to switch back to the front on view, Peter, please. Yeah, so what I tend to see is people can set up like this, which is good, but we also get during the swing, people lean into the driver like this, which automatically takes the spine angle back to forward again, creating that downward blow we're not after. So people do struggle with this, but if you can manage to get it, setting up, I sometimes feel like I set up and kick the left hip a little bit forward, which preempts the spine angle tilt. Feel like my left shoulder's a little higher, and I try and maintain this through impact, and then you can come through and get the spine back up to straight. Okay? The third thing I see with people is, again, another way of people, are we back in here, sorry? People trying to create power, and that's just trying to smash it before they've actually got to the ball. And what I mean by that is a bit of tempo. Okay, I typically see people right back, quick as they can. They think everything needs to be fast, a lot of speed. And yes, that's fine if you can control it and you can keep everything in rhythm. But if not, it can create all sorts of bad shots. So a little bit of tempo, thinking about winding up the body like a coil, like a spring, easing yourself into shot. So I typically will think of it like you want twice as long a backswing as you do through the ball. Or an old classic would be thinking of a phrase, which would be strawberry jam. So on the way back, you're thinking strawberry jam, and you thump through the ball that way. And that just gives you that little bit of a slower wind up, and then you can unleash the power at the ball where it's needed at the most important time. Another thing for helping a little bit of distance in that scenario too is feeling like you're nice and wide on the way back. So we can, I see people getting a lot crunched up here. I just want to see people swinging back nice and slow in their own tempo, but nice and wide too, creating the width of this club, because that's something that can increase club speed straight away. The further the club head is away from your core of your body, the bigger your swing arc is, we call it. Basically, it just means you can generate more speed. If you think of it like cars, cogs working in an engine, you've got a little spindle driving a bigger cog, and because the little spindle's going fast, the cog on the outside is going even faster. It's that same sort of principle. So a little bit of width, try and keep that width on the way back and at the top, and then really just wind into it so it's smooth, and then you can let rip through the ball. Okay.
We're going to see you hit one, Sam.
Yeah, we can hit one. I'll try and do everything that I've just been talking about. So I'm thinking about my setup, which I think we're going to go on to next, is it? Yeah, my preferred setup. So I'm always thinking about this in the course, although it's not a great thing to have a million thoughts before you hit a shot on the golf course, which is why doing it so many times is beneficial, because you don't have to think about it. I'll try and talk through it a little bit here. So I'm getting my ball position. Obviously, I put the club down, so now I've got a position to go distance from the ball, which is good. I'm presetting this spine angle that we're talking about. So I know I'm going to want to try and sweep this ball up in the air. And then I'm just going to think about smoothing out my tempo in the backswing and hitting a shot. And I hit that a little bit low heely, which is another thing we're going to talk about. It's going to be one of the points will be the strike. I did it on purpose so we can see the difference. I'll have one more go to try and get one bit more out the middle and launch it a bit higher. That's better.
Oh, look at that for a shot.
So yeah, I managed to get that one a bit more out the middle of the club. And you can see the two, the two differences in the shots there. One a little bit low and fadey. And the second one was a lovely launched high shot, nice and straight, good distance. And that was literally just down my strike. My swing hardly changed there at all. And it's important, the strike. That's what we're going to go on a bit later as well. So yeah, just to speak a little bit more depth to that setup. So for setup, we've got things like your ball position, which we've talked about a little bit there, where it is in relation to your feet. You can see my feet. So you got your front foot and your back foot, or opposite ways if you're a left-handed golfer. But front foot, driver, I always want the driver a little bit forward, so I typically go for it just on the inside of my left heel, which then again allows me to set up with this nice tilt away from target that we're aiming for to help us launch it. My posture, like I say, is just a little bit tilted away, and I'm going to try and maintain that through the backswing and then back through impact as well. An interesting one that people don't talk about very much would be tee height. Tee height can definitely vary, and it basically what you need to do to get the most effective strike. So you'll all have different tee heights, but predominantly you want it slightly higher in the face for a drive, and I'll explain that a little bit why with the strike again. And the gear effect and things like that, it all counts towards the shot you get. I actually tee at slightly different heights when I'm playing to create two different shots, and I'll explain that. That's what I'm going to go through with my two sort of shots in the golf course. So let's go on to strike then. So why is strike so important? And I gave you a little taste of why it is so important there before with the two shots. You could have the Tiger Woods swing, the best swing in the world if you want to class it as that. But if you can't get near the middle of the club and you start hitting all over here, it can affect the shot so much that it basically makes the swing almost irrelevant. How am I going to do this with a strike?
Do you want some spray?
No, I was thinking if I go...
We can show it on the GC pod.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. So, I mean, why strike's so important? If we get it off here, off-center strikes, basically what it does is it twists the face around the center of gravity. And we'll show you a slide later on that will show you center of gravity and how the face twists. And all that does is just loses speed straight away, puts unwanted side spin on things. And again, yeah, you don't get the same launch, you don't get the same distance. You get more of a curved flight rather than a penetrating flight. So, can we see that on here? Or?
Yeah, I can bring it up some. Here we go. Yeah, so you're seeing that on the screen now, Sam.
Yeah, so the bottom right display of this screen, you can see is all my strike locations of a few shots I've hit. So you can see the one very low. Can you see arrows on it? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, you can see it.
Yeah, so the cursor's pointing there. That was my poor strike there I was talking about. So a low heely, we call it, on the heel side of the club.
Was that red one your last one, Sam?
Yep,
Right,
it sure was.
And isn't that's one of the real differences between an amateur golfer's good and bad shots, isn't it?
Definitely, 100%.
I think, not to interrupt too much, but just to add my 2 pence in, when I see people on the range practicing, one of the things that I think most people overlook is where they're hitting it on the club face.
Definitely. And it's, like I say, you could be swinging absolutely perfectly, but you're getting all this variation in shots. You're wondering why you hook one left and then you push one out to the right, but you still feel like you're swinging it good. And it's probably, or most likely, down to your strike. Like Peter's saying, people don't take that into consideration enough. So one of the ways we do it in our lessons, obviously we've got the benefits here of the quad, which shows us exactly, as you can see on the screen, where I was hitting it on the face. If you don't have that, though, a low sort of tech version of it would be to get some sort of foot spray. It's just like a white powder spray. You can give it a over it quick, or even what do you call it, dry shampoo. That works too, and that gives you instant feedback. An even simpler way, if you've got a dry club face and you put a little dab of water on your finger and just wipe over the club face, it actually leaves a mark where you hit the ball too. So anything like that gives you a straight feedback when you're practicing. And again, strike's one of those things. It's a skill more than it is something you can fix. I would say you tend to need to practice, not just hitting it out the middle, practice hitting it out the heel on purpose, practice hitting it out the toe on purpose, slightly higher in the face, slightly lower in the face, because that is the skill in itself, manipulating the club to hit in different parts of the face. But yeah, it's super important. So could you please put up the slide of the gear effect and the... So Peter's just going to put on a slide and just explain a little bit more, especially the gear effect, because that's one that people don't sometimes even know about or fully understand. So as you can see from this one, it is the gear effect. It's showing you the club head from looking down on it, and it's showing you two cogs on it. Now this shows you what the gear effect does to help us hit fairways. Now, the driver's, if you didn't know already, the driver's face is actually curved. It's got what we call a roll and bulge on it. So it's curved from side to side and from top to bottom. If this driver face was completely flat, like an iron face, because there's no loft in it and we don't get any backspin, you could have the club face open a degree or two and it would go 30, 40 yards offline. It would be almost impossible to hit targets. So they designed this here. Because it's got a little bit of curve, it can actually put the opposite spin on it. So as you hit a toe ball, and you show the next slide, please, of the gear effect picture. You can see the center of gravity, can't you, in that one? Yeah. So if you look at the driver picture on the right there, the center of gravity is marked sort of towards the back of the driver. Now, that's where they design it to make them more forgiving. The center of gravity is back in here, but it does mean, if you want to switch back, Peter, to the camera. Yeah. It does mean, though, that everything spins around about this point. So if we don't hit it dead on the middle, say we hit it out the toe side of the club, it wants to spin open around that point, which is your center of gravity in the club. Same with heel. If you hit the heel, it wants to spin this way when it makes contact with the ball, which wants to shoot the ball off in that direction, wherever it is, toe or heel. So say I toed this one. As I'm coming into impact, toe it here, opens the face for impact, shoots the ball off to the right-hand side. But the gear effect helps us by putting the opposite spin on it, left-hand spin on it, by thinking about it like a cog again. As the ball rolls off the face, it starts to spin, and it brings it back into play. So it means you do have some sort of forgiveness for strike. The drivers are obviously designed to be the most forgiving they can for us, even on off-centered hits. Because, I mean, even the boys on the tour, the best in the world, there's no way they hit the middle every single time. Obviously, they hit a lot more than we do, but they still miss the centre, and that's when this comes into effect, this gear effect, okay?
Just to clarify a point there, Sam, just I think for everyone listening, I think it's right that the face isn't flat.
Yeah.
Because if we hit it out the toe, because of gear effect, the ball's going to hook.
Yep.
So the fact the face is aiming more right means the ball's going to set off more right and stay in play, as opposed to setting off straight and finishing left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're hitting the ball out the toe, you're going to get a hook or a draw.
Yep.
If you're hitting the ball out the heel, you're going to get a fade or a slice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't explain that very well, did I?
No, it's fine. I think the bit that was just made, we just needed to be, just to clarify it so everyone gets it, is that the reason the face isn't flat is because, and Sam and most people, I'll just come in here very quickly. For everyone who's Sam's age, you see, they'll have forgotten this, but back in my day when I first started my PGA training, these clubs were, a lot of them were made of wood. And in those days, the professional at the club would actually make what's called the bulge and the roll, and they would kind of tailor that for the golfer as well. Those days, of course, are long gone of people making clubs. So now the manufacturers do it for us, and in particular on these tailor-made clubs, they have what's called a twist face. So they are not uniform in the bulge and the roll. They're designed very specifically to get the ball to fly as straight as you can get it, even when you're not hitting it out the middle. So there you go, Sam.
Yeah,
Hope that was
perfect.
useful, everyone.
Okay, so moving on. Basically, strike is one of the impact factors we look at, and there's 5 major ones we look at all the time. The rest are, you've got your strike, then you've got your club face angle, we call it. Again, we'll go through these in a minute, which is where the face is pointing at the point of impact. That's quite an important one because I think it's 80% or 85% of the directional trajectory of the ball is done by the face. So we do need that point in where we want it to start, around about it. You've got the club path. Now, if say my club path was, my target line was straight down the edge of this mat, your club path would be, have you got a stick or something there? I'll just use my club, it's fine. Just so it gives them a visualization of it. Again, a lot of this I think Chris will go through tomorrow night in his lesson on shot shaping, but just give you a basics of it. That's my target line. As you can see on here, would be the white line on the screen. And the club path means what direction the club's physically traveling at the point of impact. Is it coming from this side of the target line across, or is it from inside to out? And that's the 2 paths there. So you've got outside to in, which typically is people who hit fades or slices, or hooks, or really bad pool hooks if they get the face shut. Or you've got your club going from the inside to out, which typically goes along with people who draw the ball, send it out to the right and bring it back. But again, that's only if the face matches up to your path. You can obviously have a 0-0 path too, where it goes straight down, which is ideal. I think you've seen in my last one there, which we could look at again in a minute. The path there was pretty good. It was pretty close to 0 as well as the face, which is why it went nice and straight. We've got angle attack, which we touched on before, which is coming up into the back of the ball, helping launch it, or you're hitting down at the back of the ball like you would with an iron. That can affect the shape and launch, especially with the driver. You've got the club head speed. That's another impact factor, which is important because, again, at the end of the day, that can be a limiting factor for people for total distance. If you've got everything else pretty spot on, your path, your face, your launch, your spin numbers, at the end of the day, the next thing it's going to limit it will be your actual club head speed. What else have I missed out? Anything?
I was going to suggest, should we take a look at some of those real numbers on the screen? Try to bring them up.
That one, yeah. And you got club. Yeah, so...
probably show this on the screen. What I'll do is Billy doing it?
Are you showing it on the screen?
We'll bring it up in a bit more detail here.
So are they seeing that full screen?
I'll make it bigger. There we go.
Yeah, so on this one here, like we're speaking about, this displays all the impact numbers that I was just explaining. You've got strike location in the bottom right there with a red dot. That was my last strike. You've got your club path in the top left there. So this one here for me says I'm 0.7 path into out, which means I'm swinging it from the inside of that target line to the outside by 0.7 degrees, so basically straight. And then the face again on here, 0.7 open, so very close to zeros. If you hit sort of near or anywhere near the middle of the club with those sort of numbers, you're not going to get much side reaction on the golf ball. You can see, where's my spin? Side spin, 84 right-hand spin, which you think about an over a drive of 300 yards, 84 revolutions of spin to the right is nothing.
To be honest, I think the CC quad has a tolerance of probably plus minus 100 anyway.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's like, so what else can you see on here? You can see my, dynamic loft. That's one I didn't explain. So dynamic loft in the bottom left there, 19.4 degrees of loft. Now, that may confuse a few people. I've got a 9-degree driver, but at the point of impact, the loft in the club was 19.4 degrees. That's due to, one, the fact that I was hitting up on it, 3.2, so that adds another few degrees onto it, and also how I'm releasing the club through impact. Now, that can vary again, but you've got an optimal, don't you? So that one's pretty good for me. I usually see mine between 15 and 18, which is okay. That's a little high for me. But the launch angle was good. If you see, the launch angle of the ball was only 13.5 degrees, and that's just about bang on for where I want it. And then my backspin on the ball was 2,500, which is not bad. Again, I prefer to see it between 2,500 and 2,000 to get my full potential and distance. And you can see my club head speed, 110 miles an hour, which is not bad considering I've been sitting on a couch for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Sam, I know you just did full throw, but we've got a question I'm going to put up on the screen.
Yeah.
From Gillian Murray.
Uh-huh.
Is setting the ball up on the tee with a logo at impact position so I can focus on striking the logo a good idea?
Yeah, definitely. Anything that's going to help you visualize the strike and perform a better strike, definitely. I also do that for aligning. I use the logo on the golf ball and I line it up with where I want it to start, the direction. That can also give you a visualization. But yeah, if you put the logo on this side of the ball where you know you're going to have to try and hit the ball, definitely. Also using the top of the club, because usually they've got some sort of logo or something on the top of a golf club, which indicates where the middle of the club will be and help you with that strike. Just
expanding on that a little bit, Sam,
yeah.
There, is, you know, we haven't really talked a huge amount about angle of attack yet, have you?
No, not really, no.
Sorry, I was busy controlling the cameras at times, and so I wasn't paying full attention. But, you know, we definitely want to hit more up on a driver, as you said when you talked about the setup posture.
Yeah.
So would it, just going into Gillian's comment, if you've got the logo on the ball here, and it was a focus on hitting it, would it not be a good idea of where you positioned it, that maybe even getting that logo and position it like here? So this bit where it says TP5X.
So you need to try and hit.
So you kind of focus on trying to see that.
Yeah.
And if that logo is kind of low on the ball here, so you've tilted it from the equator slightly south, so it's this way. And if you're looking at that already, you're going to feel like you're looking more under the backside of the ball and trying to get the club face onto that logo. These are great little tips that are going to allow you to create the technique without it being too thoughtful, without having to remember so many things. It's like, well, I've just got to smack the logo there with the club. Of course, if it was here, we're going to be a bit more neutral. Maybe even if it was this way, we'd be more down in our angle of attack. So, Gillian, a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
just a little tweak to it there to make it even more
super.
effective.
I think I'm going to go on to... So that's impact factors explained, and that's everything that we're taking into consideration when we're trying to help somebody improve and see what their faults are, potentially. Excuse me. So I did a few shots previously to try and get a bit of data, and I think we're going to put that up on the screen now, just so we can see the difference in. You've had a look at that one I've just done there, which was a nice straight shot. Everything was quite close to zero, the path, the face, the strike was decent. If you can bring up the ones for me, that's a draw and a fade.
Yeah, so the first one I'm on, Sam.
Yeah.
This shows...
should be a straight shot. If you move on to the next one, I think it's a draw shot.
Oh, yeah. I'd call that a snap hook.
So the difference there, you can see from my previous one where they were quite close to zero down target line, the face and the path. You can see my path is now a bit more from what we call the inside to out. I don't know how many degrees it says in there.
Sorry, I've just brought up a thing. There you go, it's gone again.
So how many degrees is it? Maybe 5 degrees into out or something? It's not that easy to see.
I think people are going to look at this a bit like we did, Sam, when we first got training.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a long time ago that I first got training on this stuff. And you see a sea of numbers quite literally there. So what Sam's talking about here is the top left-hand image where it's showing the above view of the club head. And the number it says, if you can all see, it's difficult to make it small on this screen. Oh, Billy's told me it says 5.8 path into out.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I was saying, that typically is the one we see with people who can draw the ball. The path comes from the inside to the outside, and the face is also slightly close to that, which means it get the draw spin on it.
What's interesting, Sam, though, and people will see it on that image, is because you haven't got the face to path tab selected, but it says the face is 1.8 degrees closed, which is of course close to that path.
Yeah.
But it's actually open
to the target line.
The club head is open to the target, so that's again It's a thing people get wrong.
Yeah,
isn't it?
definitely,
Trying to hit a shot,
definitely.
which Chris will talk about.
Yeah, so we need to start, if we're hitting a draw shot, we need to start the ball out to the right there. And that's why the face still needs to point right of target to get it starting out to the right and then draw back onto target, rather than getting that face pointing at target so it starts really close to target and then goes away left of it. And again, not that you need to see it really, but the next slide again is just a fade. So everything is almost flipped on its head. You can see the path now has changed, that top left from out to in to slightly
4 degrees.
in to out 4 degrees. So
4
it's
degrees out to
so about 9 degrees difference between my draw shot and my fade shot. And again, the opposite there, my face is a tiny bit open to that path, but still closed to my target line. Okay. The interesting one I never showed you in there was I actually hit more, the angle attack again we're talking about, I hit more up on the ball when I'm hitting my draw shots. When I'm getting a bit more fadey and hitting fades on purpose, my attack angle goes quite close to 0, even slightly down on the ball.
Yeah, 3.7 up for the draw, 1.5 down when you're hitting the fade.
Yeah. And that's bringing me on to my next point, which is going to be my 2 shots. I'll do this now. So my 2 shots on the golf course.
I was just going to say, before we do that,
yeah.
If you don't mind, Sam, we have a question.
Question.
So, I need to remove that data. Yeah, you keep your right, son. Right, so the question is from William Wallace, and it says, as new driver technology is all about straightening out the ball flight, how are we making it more difficult for ourselves by trying to shape driver off the tee? Should we stop trying to shape it because the manufacturer trying to stop us shaping it?
I agree and disagree with that. It's a good point. Modern drivers are definitely getting more difficult to maneuver from like curvature, side curvature on a ball. They are designed, like William was saying, to go more straighter, higher flighted, less spin to get the potential maximum distance out of them, which is a good thing. But you do definitely need to shape shots on golf courses. Not every hole's dead straight down the middle. So that's one time you need to try
possibly less so with the driver, would you say, or more so? I mean, I'm just thinking, like, generally speaking, do you need to shape it? I suppose there are.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we play around about Scotland a little bit in the little tours we play in for the PGA stuff, and there is definitely driver holes out there where you need to shape the ball to make sure you don't run out of the fairway in a certain position, or you're getting around a corner of trees or things like that. So you do definitely need to shape it. But most importantly, I don't just hit straight shots. Obviously, it'd be good to hit straight shots all the time when you can, and I do try to most of the time. But I've got 2 very different drives I hit on the golf course in tournament play, which I'm confident I know how to do. And one of them is so I call my fairway finder, and that's actually a drive where I purposely hit a little bit more fade on the ball because I feel like for me personally, I can control that a bit better and get it in play. So I use that when I've got a particularly tight tee shot where I need to get a long way down the hole because it's a long hole, but I also need to hit the fairway because there's hazards, left, right, bushes, trees, things like that, bunkers you need to miss. So it's more of a go-to shot for accuracy. Now, it doesn't allow me to get my potential maximum distance, but it does. I've got confidence in it. I'm going to hit fairway with it more times than I don't. And then I've got the opposite swing where I can have sort of a bit more of a free lash at it, a bigger swing, a bit more power in it. And I'm going to try and send that a bit more high and a bit more drawy to get the potential maximum distance out of it. And I'll use that on long par 5s, holes that don't have great amounts of hazards on them. I mean, you get away with an offline shot. And I'll just talk you through my couple of different thoughts for those 2 shots. So, yeah, definitely. So,
should we put this on a call so you're practice ground?
We'll leave it on here now. I mean, so the fairway finder one, I'm purposely going to hit a bit more of a fade. Now, for a fade for me, I need to do a little bit less of this setup that we call the tilt back away from things. I'm not trying to hit it up into the air miles here. I'm trying to hit a bit more of a low controlled spinny one, which for me helps accuracy. No, it won't do for everybody, but for me, in the way I swing it, it does because I'm a natural hooker of the ball. So when I'm trying to do the opposite, which is a fade, I can control it more because I can be more aggressive at the movements and I won't overdo them, if you understand that. So I'm setting up potentially the ball's in the same position, but I'm not leaning back away from the target as much. I feel like my shoulders are a tiny bit more level. I also feel like I'm aiming a tiny bit up the left, and I know that I'm going to keep the face here a bit more open so I can create that left-right spin, and I'm also not going to hit up on it so much. So I get a bit more backspin in the ball, and hopefully it stays a bit more on target. So I'm going to try and send it down the left and hit somewhere around about target. So that you see there, can you see that? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I started down the left there and it curved back. Now it's only gone 280 total, which for me is not close to my longest drive by far.
Only 280, folks. You hear that? Only 280. There's probably a lot of people watching Sam that would dream of hitting 280. So that was the fade.
That is on the course. I'm pretty confident most of the time I'm getting that in play. So like I say, on tight par fours and things where I need to get a drive away to reach it in two, but still hit fairway, that's the shot I go to. Now, the opposite for the draw, or the high sort of power shot, I would call it, I am going to embrace that more.
So this is when you got like when you need to bomb it like a
yeah. I'll get a slightly higher tee too. So again, this is where tee height can change. Because I'm trying to hit it a bit more up in the air, a bit lower spinning, teeing it up a tiny bit higher. Now I'm purposely here going to try and hit it a little bit more high in the face and potentially even a little bit more towards the toe to help with that draw shape and to get the ball launching up with less spin.
Just going back to we mentioned the toe strike's going to help with the draw.
Yeah.
But why slightly high?
Yeah, again, so that's going back to gear effect. So I forgot to say this, but basically gear effect doesn't just work around this way twisting. It also works this way twisting when the club hits the ball. So if I hit off the top of the club, can you see this in here?
Yeah, I'll just make it big again.
If I can hit off the top of the club, as you're coming into impact, it can actually put it's hard to say, but basically it shoves the club this way around the centre of gravity. So it basically puts more loft on it, which in turn puts less spin on it. If you hit it out the low side of the club, at the bottom part of the face, it actually puts the face less lofted and it puts that opposite curve in the ball and it puts more backspin on the ball.
It's the opposite to what you think, everyone. Just on that, about spin on the ball, something that I get, and I hear a lot with amateur golfers when they're talking about trying to hit a long drive or they see a playing partner who hits a really long drive, they talk about, oh, he's put topspin on the ball. Listen, the only shot you put topspin on is a top shot. Okay, every ball that gets in the air is loaded with backspin. You did hear Sam touch on earlier, his data for one of the shots was about 2,500 RPM of backspin with a driver. So your irons typically will be upwards of, well, they should be around 6,000, let's say, with a 7-iron. Some of the modern 7-irons are dropping off a little bit now as they become less lofted. But anyway, there's lots and lots of backspin on all your shots. As long as it's going up in the air, it's got backspin. Maybe not enough to have the ball bouncing on the green and zipping back like you see the tour pros doing, but they will have backspin.
Yeah, definitely. So like I say, it's slightly higher in the face for me, which will create a little bit less spin, hopefully, to get the maximum out of this ball. But because the fact that it has less backspin on it does mean it's more susceptible to sideways movement because of the side spin on it. So you need to get a pretty good strike, but just slightly higher in the face. Now I'm presetting myself up here for a bigger swing, a little bit wider in the stance potentially, because I know I'm going to be swinging a bit faster. Still got to try and keep my tempo. Let's see what we can do. So I think I hit that a little low in the face, so it might be spinning up quite a bit. Yeah, so I'm looking at my data and I've seen the numbers. A little bit spinny.
So the distance-wise, what was that, 299?
299 total, I think.
So an increase in distance, definitely. What about the, let's just bring up on the screen now, so everyone can see the actual numbers that you're talking about there. So, yeah, it's a little bit low. I don't know if you can see that in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, folks.
Yeah. So you can see there, the red mark is my last strike, which I was trying to hit slightly above the equator of which is the red line there. And I've hit slightly below the equator, which means a low strike and more backspin. And you can see that my total backspin there in the middle, 2,800, which is way too high for my...
Yeah, just in case you got 2,859
backspin
reading there. So you can see, yeah, definitely a bit
It's
more.
way too high for what I was trying to do there. So
Did you use the pink or the orange?
I did use the orange tee there, in fact, but I still managed to hit it low in the face, which just shows you, like I was saying, it's more of a skill hitting the strike on the part of the face you're wanting to. But because I've not been playing for the last 3 months, I'll give myself the benefit of the doubt.
Full time down.
I used to be able to do it on purpose.
It was still a great shot.
Yeah, it's a good shot. I mean,
you can all see that on the screen,
it's gone dead straight, and it's a decent distance, 300 yards total, basically. So I'm not going to be miffed at that, but let's see if we can get one a bit more over that if we can. 320. Let's go. Let's go for a 320. A little bit spinny again, but maybe a bit better. We knock it after this. No, pretty much exactly the same. Look, 300 total. I need to get my speed back again.
Well, funny enough, I mean, people, just for those of you watching at home, you'll see that Sam's got his waterproof jacket on. I've got this padded jacket on. Billy's behind the camera helping me with the production here. He looks like he's off to the Arctic. And the reason for that is that we've got a thermometer in the corner. It's 3 degrees here in the studio today. So for Chris is going to be quite fortunate because for his session tomorrow night, I'm going to get a heater. As much for me and Billy as it is for anyone else. But yeah, it's freezing here. And that does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. Because your muscles aren't warmed up. There's extra tension in there. You can't have such a free-flowing swing. So yeah, I think the golf ball characteristics will change if it's a colder golf ball.
Well, the golf ball definitely stiffens up.
It can't compress as much and then get that spring off the face, so it all affects the total distance, definitely. I was going to go a little bit over my driver numbers and what I've sort of struggled with in the past. Like I said before, it used to be one of my weakest parts of my game, my driving.
Sam, just before you do,
yeah.
We have got a question.
Uh-huh.
This is from Graham Paul. And he says, this is on YouTube, he says, Sam, given the shape of the driver face, as you've explained,
yeah,
I imagine grip pressure could have an effect on the ball strike, correct?
Yeah, definitely can.
What would you say to people about grip pressure?
That's one thing there I didn't mention when I was going through my setup for the 2 different shots I play. With the fadey shot, I typically grip it slightly tighter on the club. And then when I'm hitting that draw shot or that bigger sort of more free-flowing swing, I definitely grip it slightly looser so it can naturally release a bit easier in my hands. When I'm getting that fade, grip it a bit tighter so I can basically hold that face angle slightly open through impact. So that's another good tip for people to try out when they're practicing.
General statements that we see golfers on the range, on the golf courses, would you say the majority grip it too tight or too loose?
Yeah, 100% too tight. I don't know who was it Paul Montgomery or something used to say, try and hold it like a tube of toothpaste and not let any of the toothpaste come out or something like that. So yeah, definitely you want it on the looser side. You basically want enough pressure there that you're not going to let go of the club while you're swinging, but you don't want to be throttling it. But like I say, it's something to have a play about with. Like we've had a look at things. You've got tee height to play about with, where the ball is in your stance a little bit. Although you still need to hit up on it, don't you? So, yeah, that's why practice is so important. And
you not find like if someone from this evening they just become aware of grip pressure, the next time they play, I think people can change just by being aware of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Just waggle the club a few times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you've got a really tight grip, you try to waggle the club, it's very difficult to do. So you know there you're gripping it far too tight. I can feel a lot of tension up my forearms here, which is never good in a golf swing. So if you just loosen up the grip pressure, I like to think of it as sort of like a 3 out of 10 pressure-wise on a scale, and then you can really feel the club with that little bit less pressure, and you can feel the weight of the club head, which helps you in the movement of the swing. And my forearms are nice and loose here, and it'll just allow you to create a much smoother swing.
My mum's commented as well, saying, put the heating on, please, Sam and Billy. Unfortunately, there is no heating in the studio, Mum. It's all in the actual main golf centre building. So nothing I can do about that. But if some health and safety at work people came around, then we would be bothered, I think. We have got another question, Sam.
Yeah.
This one is from Emma Noble. in your setup, should your weight be in the front of your foot or back in your heels?
Okay.
Should it be in the front of your toes or in your
Yeah,
heels?
yeah.
You
So
yourself?
I would say probably neither. Is it Emma? Sorry.
Emma,
Yeah. I always try and think of it, the weight sort of going through the balls of my feet. So just where the sort of knuckles are in your feet. I don't like to have too much in the heels or too much in the toes, because the forces of the swing as you're swinging can, if you're too much in your toes, pull you forward, or heels, you kind of want to sit back on it. So yeah, I always try and kind of get it at a balance point on my feet. And you can test it, get the feeling for it when you're set up in your golf shot. Literally just rock backwards and forwards a little bit on to your toes to your heels, and you'll feel that sort of mid-balance point, and that's where you want to keep the pressure on the soles of your feet. So kind of through the middle of your feet, the balls of your feet would be my tip. What was I going to go on? Yeah, my struggles. So like I say, I grew up at Cullen, hit 3 or 4 drives in a round if you're lucky. So when I actually went to courses where you needed to hit the ball relatively down the middle, I was really struggling. I moved to Duff House when I was probably off 3 handicap, and I really struggled there. I mean, like, I was playing really well apart from my driving and scrambling around and still not getting my handicap. So it put an emphasis on me of what I needed to practice and get better at. And that really did help me. Just having a tighter target with the trees at Duff House, the bunkers and the fairways, it really improved my driving a lot. And then when I actually joined the team here at Dunes and I started learning about my data, my numbers, things like that, then I really started to improve. A couple of lessons from Pete himself, just to get a few ideas on what I was working on. So my tendency when I was younger was to, like a lot of people up in the Northeast here, was to have a really strong grip, which means a tendency to close the face, hit sort of low, hooky shots.
Just on the grip, Sam, for everyone watching, so I think this is a thing people get wrong as well.
Yeah.
The definition of a strong grip, is that how tight we're gripping it,
No.
or something else?
Yeah, so strong grips, when we talk about strong and weak grips, it's relative to the orientation of your hands are around the grip. It's not the pressure as such, it's more around here.
So what's the strong grip look like just for your left hand?
So left hand strong grip would be more on hand over the top and away from target.
See all your knuckles, let's say?
Yeah, you see a lot of knuckles here. You see the back of your hand quite predominantly, and your thumb's more over to the right hand side. A weak grip obviously would be the opposite. So we're seeing basically no knuckles when we look down here. Your thumb's on top or to the side here. That's an extremely weak grip. A good tip for getting your grip, you can look down at it, as long as when you're doing all these grip checks, you make sure your face is still pointing the right direction on the golf club face, is pointing where you want it to go. And then you can take your grip. Sometimes up here is easier for people, or on the ground's up to yourself. But you look down, you look and you see 2, maybe 3 knuckles in your left hand. That's a good judge. If you want to get a bit more technical, you can pop a T in here. This is a good one too. So if I've got too weak a grip here now, you can see the T points away at the target side. If I've got too strong a grip, it would point away over to the right. So you want to really get that T pretty much pointing straight down the club there, you see. Now, I know I've got a pretty good starting position. And then the right hand obviously just sits underneath. I do tend to see people with really strong grips here as well, which wants to shut the face through impact too, which is what I used to be like. I used to have the thumb right down the side here, and now I've got much more on top. So that was one of the things I worked on, was weakening my grip so I didn't really turn that face through impact and hit a lot of left hooky shots. One of the other things I used to do quite a lot was I had a lot of lateral sliding motion in my swing. So as I was swinging, coming down into the ball, I had a lot of hip movement this way, which people know it's not a great move for driving, especially for accuracy, because it stops you turning properly. So I had more slide, which sends the club out to the right. And everybody knows now from seeing the numbers, if you have your path going out to the right, swinging out to the right-hand side, you've got to do something to hit target, and that something's either shut the face or you're hitting it miles right.
I just wondered, Sam, given that I've got a question as well that came through on email and it's come through. But before we do that, just on that idea that swinging out to the right is going to cause you to hook, I would say without doubt, the vast majority of golfers that we teach, that we see, that are out on the golf courses, suffer from the slice.
Slice, yeah, exactly.
So is it not a good thing for them to deliberately try to send that club as far right as they can.
Exactly, yeah. So for me, like I was saying, that was my flaw growing up. But for a lot of people, they don't get even near to doing that, and they would benefit from doing a bit more of that for sure, like Peter's saying. So that idea of the club.
But isn't it really kind of counterintuitive that you as a golfer are so used to seeing the ball disappear into the trees over here?
Yeah, yeah.
And yet you're being prescribed, you're being asked to work on a swing where you're actually gonna. So if you're swinging there, you're sending the club out to me here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's where the ball's going, but that's what you've got to go to the range for, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
And get some practicing and getting uncomfortable with swinging out this way, and just see what happens to the ball flight.
All this stuff we're talking about today is basically irrelevant if you don't know your own patterns and your own swing thoughts. Know your own numbers a little bit, because otherwise it's it's basically a guessing game, isn't it? So know your own numbers is crucial to improving your own swing.
We've got a question as well, Sam, if you're okay with this.
Yeah.
So this actually came through by email as well, but he's asked it here on Facebook. Hi, Sam. For windy conditions, which we currently have to contend with here in the northeast corner, do you have an effective way to drill the ball into the wind, keeping it low rather than it ballooning, and the result, of course, of your ball losing lots of distance? So obviously for a driver, despite what we talked about with angle of attack, trying to launch the ball higher, low spin, what would you say for driving it into the wind? What do you do?
Kind of the opposite of what you would think again. I mean, I suppose your initial instinct when going into the wind is to try and drive the ball as low as you can. But from what we've seen and talked about, hitting down on the ball, which we would do if we were trying to hit it low, coming down into the back of the ball, getting that angle of attack down, having enough loft to actually get the ball airborne, is all it's going to do is create a lot of backspin. Now, that's going to be really, really bad for straight into the wind shots. It just takes all the distance off the balloon. The ball just wants to balloon up in the air. So really, I don't do much different, to be honest, into the wind. Like I say, the driver for spin rates is much more effective, slightly higher in the face. So people always tend to tee the ball really low into the wind. I would say tee up normal, if not slightly higher, and try and get that slightly higher strike in the face there to reduce the backspin, because that's the biggest thing that can change distance. If you swung the same speed and hit similar numbers, it would be the backspin would be the majority of the distance change between two different shots. So something with like 3,000 backspin might, for me, go 250 yards total. Something that I catch a little bit higher in the face, around about 2,000 spin, I'm definitely getting up to the 300 mark. And then you can see that directly as well into wind.
So is the answer to Doug then to try, see what happens if he tees the ball higher?
Yeah, so
aim for a higher strike on the club face.
Obviously, if you get a day on the range where you've got into the wind, you can test this, slightly lower tee, slightly higher tee. But basically what I'm saying is I would keep it simple. I would tee it the same height as normal, try and launch it with as much, like sort of as little spin as you can. The only thing I might do is swing it slightly harder at it. But yeah, trying to catch up in the face. I'm definitely not teeing it low, trying to drill it low, because then you're just ballooning it. And if you get any sort of side spin on the ball, that's when it starts carving away into the wind and it's exaggerated. So you're not changing it too much, really, into the wind. Swinging a little bit harder, trying to hit up nice and high in the face.
You ready for some more questions?
Yeah, I can do. I think that was a couple of boys sent in that, didn't they? That driver into the wind. Somebody else did one.
I've got a couple more here. It was my dad as well that asked the same thing.
Yeah.
The next one is from Gareth Boyers. My go-to driver shot is a slice wave right, and I know it's caused by the club face being more open. Is there a drill I can practice at home and on the range to help correct this? Also, in a similar vein, we've got, hi there, when using my driver, my bad shot is a bit of a slice with the odd straight left thrown in sometimes. Do you have a drill that could be used to try and eliminate these bad shots and get back on track, hitting it straight? So we're looking, Sam, for a couple of drills for basically an over-the-top out-to-win path. And then also, what can we do? And that was from Gareth, who said, how can we... what can you do at home?
Definitely.
To stop the club face being
so one of the greatest things you can do for drills is using a head cover, a towel, something like that. especially on the range when you're doing full swings. It just gives you that straight feedback that we're looking for from a drill. This is also a good one for angle of attack. So if we're trying to launch the ball and you're one who struggles to get it up in the air, what I tend to do on the range, just going off topic a little bit, is I get people to put a head cover down in front of the ball, something to aim that you need to get the ball up over, okay? That'll help your launch. But in regards to the face drill, keeping the face a bit more close for impact so you don't get that slice. For one, probably hitting more up in the back of the ball will help for you, definitely, because that usually ties in with more launch and drawy shots. But this next drill's just still using your driver on the range. It's hard to say without seeing your numbers, but basically I would do this drill with somebody. So this is here to stop me swinging across the ball, okay? Because typically people who slice the ball need to swing left of the target, don't they, with an open face. So this is going to stop me swinging down in here because I'm going to hit it on the way in. So it's forcing me to swing more down in here, which is that first drill I showed you. So get up to the top of your swing and feel the club come down in here more, and then turn onto it, brings it from the inside here now. And the second part of this is going to be literally getting that club face turning. So if we think about it, like your face can close, but it's got to close in the right way, okay? So you can close the face by releasing it this way. That's going to shut the face on the way through. Or you can spin it around this axis. That closes the face too. And that's the more effective one for me for getting people to change from an open face for impact. So this is just a 100-yard shot or so. So it's like a half swing of the driver. Setting up as normal. I'm going to think about coming more from the inside here. So I'm not going to cut across it and hit this on the way out. And I'm not going to let my club pass here. So I'm not going to get this sort of release in my hand. It's going to be this sort of release. Okay, and I'm just going to hit a half shot and try and get that face closing. Oh, I didn't pick up. But yeah, basically that's it. It's just like a 100-yard shot. You don't need to put any speed in it because this is the point of drills is to make you feel something different. Like I say, it's half to half swing, and you're feeling a good point of reference here is on the way back, you can see the club face here, the toes almost pointing up to the sky. On the way through, it should be the opposite. It should have whipped right round. Somebody who holds the face open will typically see the face still pointing up at the sky. So do it again. It's just a half swing, getting that face closing. And you can see that ball's wanting to go slightly to the left there because I'm getting that face closing through impact. So that's a good drill for the range. A few checkpoints. Don't let the club go past the hands, but you're getting the turn of the face by that movement. So it's wrist angles. We use this one in our lessons a lot. Wrong sport, but it really helps people visualize this. Take your golf grip on a tennis racket. On the way back, you can start to see that face opening up like I was seeing with the toe pointing up to the sky. On the way through, we would see that tennis racket close, and that's the movement we need here. It's this roll of the wrists to get that face closing through impact. But again, it's not going to be people who swing to the left aren't going to want to do this because it's going to make the ball go really far left. But it's kind of a combination of the two. Looking at your path, making sure it's not too far to the left, and getting that hand rolling over. Another good one is for in the house. If you get a dinner plate in your two hands, flat palms on it, so you're holding the dinner plate here. Have we got? I'll go get one. Okay, Pete's way to get one. It's a very simple drill that you can do in your kitchen. Perfect. So any sort of dinner plate here. So you've got side you'd eat off of, the bottom side of the plate. Again, hold it out in front of you here, flat palmed. And this is going to allow you to, exactly the same as a tennis racket, but in your house, everybody's got plates. And you see on the way back, you can see the dinner side of the plate where you'd eat off of. On the way through, you would see that disappear, come to neutral, and then you would start to see the bottom side. Again, if you're a slicer of the golf ball, you're typically going to see the side you eat off almost the whole way through the swing there. So noticing this turnover, really trying to build up what that feels like of the hands coming over, and then incorporating that into your practice on the range, okay?
Sam, I don't know what more stuff you've not covered yet, but you're over an hour now.
Oh.
So,
right, so we'll wrap it up really quickly. The last thing I was going to speak about was a bit more just about spin rates and launch angles. If you want to just put up the slide of the Canon, so people can understand what I'm meaning with this. Basically, people need to find out what their ball speed is. So from their actual what speed the ball comes off, and then it can allow us to see what the ideal sort of launch numbers are for them. If you can see, I think you're seeing a Canon just now. It's just a really simple diagram to allow us to see what happens if we launch it too low. What happens if we launch it too low? It hits the ground earlier, you don't get the full carry out your golf ball. You launch it too high, you get too much of that force going upwards instead of forwards, and then it comes down short of where your potential is. You get that launch angle right. On there it says 45, but that doesn't mean it's right. That's just a cannonball. So you think about it, a golf ball's got backspin on it to help it keep it in the air. So we don't need to launch it that high to keep it in the air. That's why we can launch them at 12, 15 degrees, something like that. But yeah, it's important to know where you're at sort of speed-wise to get your perfect launch angle to get the maximum out of your driver. And again, that's where fitting comes into play so much. Making sure you've got the right loft of driver is very important to get your maximum distance. The last slide, again, is just a thing that Ping have put together. They've done a lot of testing, and this is, I think, from like robot testing, so there's no human element of variation in here. And they've worked out from your attack angle along the bottom of that screen, you can see it goes from, I think, is it -10 to +10?
It's a long way down, yeah.
So basically, you look in the middle there, it's got 0, which means your attack angle's neither up nor down. At the lowest point in your swing, you're making an impact to the ball, and then you go up, and it tells you all the different launch angles and swing speeds on the left, ball speeds, sorry, and it tells you what your potential maximum distance is.
Yeah, it's going from like red is the worst up to the green is like the best, and you can see that if you're hitting down on it, then you're only getting, even with the fastest swing speeds, a very light green.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's kind of a simple illustration just to show the benefits of hitting up on it. And I think if you're looking for long distance, certainly all the long drive record holders, they're definitely creating a significant positive angle of attack.
Yeah, they're hitting like 8-9 degrees up on it, whereas I would say a good thing to aim for would be about 2 or 3 degrees up on it. A driver would be a decent number to aim for.
Just one last question, I think, Sam. We've touched on this a little bit this evening. Robert Goldie is asking, how do you determine an optimum tee height for your swing?
Trial and error, I would say.
Yeah.
Like we say before, trying to find what your strike location is. So your strike patterns. If you take, say, a pink castle tee, for example, you know it's a standard height. Use that, hit maybe 5 to 10 shots. Watch where the strike's coming off with maybe using foot spray or something like that. Come in and use our GC quad, get some strike numbers. Then try and change your height and see what happens.
Just on the castle tee, guys, I don't know if you can see this on the camera. We've got different heights here. The orange, the pink, and the white. And what Sam's saying is that with these, you're not having to think too much. Once you've got a height that you're happy with for that club, whichever club it may be in your bag, then choose one of the castle tees. I think it's a general rule of thumb, though, Sam. What would you say is a good starting point for tee with a driver?
Yeah, definitely. A good way to go is just to imagine when the tee's in the ground, the ball sits about half on the equator of the top of the driver, so you're getting half the ball above the driver head would be a good sort of indicator that you're you're just about in the right position.
There we go. So half
the ball above the top of the club is a good starting point. And then experiment. Like I say, there's no right or wrong in golf as such. But there is tendencies, and everybody else has their own tendencies. So you've got to find out for yourself what happens. I think that's pretty much it. I've covered as much as I thought I would.
I think what we all need to do, and unfortunately Sam can't hear this, but if you're watching at home, just give him a round of applause. Come on, Billy. I think you did absolutely amazing there, Sam. And as Sam said at the beginning, this is really Sam's first time doing anything in front of the camera. It's not easy. I know I do quite a lot in front of camera, so people say I make it look easy. I don't think it's easy for anyone. I just got more used to it. So I think, Sam, have you enjoyed that?
Yeah, I enjoyed it once I got into it. Yeah,
Once
it was
you got
good.
into it, I think it's like a lot of things. The more we do this, and hopefully, if you have been watching at home, please just put a comment. We'd love to know that you've enjoyed it. What have you got out of it? Send a little bit of love this way so that we can lap it up, and it'll give us the encouragement to do more of these things. Don't forget as well, tomorrow evening, same time at 6 o'clock, we'll be going live at 10, so just like we did this evening. It's Chris Nichols' turn here in the hot seat. Sam's going to go home, maybe crack open a beer, put his feet up. His job is done this evening, and he'll be tuning in, I'm sure, and sending his best wishes to his colleague here at Dunes, to Chris. And then, of course, it's my turn on Sunday evening when I'll be talking to you about the mental side of the game. We're going to over-deliver for you here, folks. If you have signed up for this, if you put your email address into that form on the dunesgolfcentre.co.uk/live lessons website, then you will be getting the course notes to accompany each session. So Sam put some stuff together for me to send out to you all. It'll probably be going out on Monday or Tuesday, so do look out for that in your inboxes. It'll just be a simple way that you can collate everything that Sam's talked about this evening and what Chris will talk about tomorrow, and then me on Sunday. So that's it then, folks. Thanks a lot, Sam. Superstar there.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching.
Enjoy your night.
Now.